Hi students, welcome to yet another class on Fine-Tune Your English. Today we would be looking on the topic questions. I'm sure we all know what a question is. There is not a single day in our life where we don't ask questions. It is part of our life. And we've also been told during our school days that whenever we write a question, you need to add a question mark at the end of the question. So what you see on screen are question marks. And we also used to raise our hands while in a class or in a group in order to ask a question. So what is a question? You ask a question mainly to get information. So you would want to know, or you would like to get an answer based on the question that you are asking to a particular person that you are asking. So when you ask what is your name, you would like to know the name of the person. What are you doing? You would like to know what he or she is doing. So you would want to get information regarding a subject or an object, or someone did something, or anything of that sort. What is the time? How is it going? When are you going to the office? When is your exam? There are lots of questions. And for some of the questions, you will only have two options, whether this or that. I'm sure as students, you're all familiar with questions, especially when you write your exams. You would have multiple choice questions, short answer questions, paragraph questions, essay type questions. So similarly, you would be asked a particular question out of which the answer would be just a one-word answer or a long answer, or you would be given the options and you would have to choose between both. So basically, a question is seeking for an information. You are trying to get a clarification based on certain questions that you are asking. So it's an information seeking pattern that you are trying to get through a question that is being asked. Now, there are different types of questions, and you have almost 8 types of questions, and we use all of them to frame a question in the English language. I'm sure you're all familiar with these questions, with the way that we've asked questions quite regularly with our parents or with our teachers or with your friends, or even when you go to a shop. We might have used all of them, in fact. But these terms would not be as familiar to you. Maybe some of them would be. So let's see what these different types of questions are. We have the WH questions, yes or no questions, alternative questions, tag questions, declarative questions, exclamatory questions, rhetorical questions, and indirect questions. So let's look into each of these question types in detail. We start with the WH questions. This is very familiar to all of us. Again, something that we've learned from our school days. So any question word that starts with the WH is a WH question, like the what, when, who, which, why. And in addition to the WH question is the how. It is not a word that starts with WH, but yet it comes under the category of the WH questions. Now, basically, these questions are asked to identify a subject or an object or even a time. Like, what are you doing? What time is it? Who are you going out with? Which is the route? to go to Kottayam. Why is he here? So this is how we ask different types of questions with regard to the WH questions in order to identify the subject or the object or anything of that matter. Again, something that we need to remember is we need to use the words that starts with WH, or what, when, who, which, why, and how. Now, a rule that is attributed to this WH question is, suppose you are asking a question in order to identify the subject. For example, look at the example given here. Who bought these dogs? So you would want to know who actually bought these dogs. So when you are asking such kind of a question where you want to identify the subject, there is no change in the word order. The usual word order in a sentence is the subject plus verb plus object. Here you can see that who bought these dogs. So you have a subject, you have a verb, and you have an object where you're trying to identify the subject. But in all other cases, like the object or the time or anything else, you know that there is a change in the word order where the verb is split, where a verb is split into the do plus the verb part of it. So do part of it would always be in the second position. So you ask the question word, then you have the do form and plus the verb. So when did you buy these dogs? So you're not trying to get the subject out here, but rather you want to know when you bought these dogs. A time frame where you want to know whether you bought it yesterday or last week or last year. But there is a change in the word order. So this is what you'll have to remember in the WH questions. The next type of question is the yes or no question. This is very simple. Your answer is either an yes or a no. So here you can see that such questions begin with an auxiliary verb, like the is, or even the be forms, are or did. Usually it is asked with an auxiliary verb or the be forms. And you also have a negative question where you can get the answer either an yes or a no. But such negative questions introduces an element of surprise. Now, what is a negative question? So, any statement or a question which has a not, the word not in it, will bring about a negative statement or a negative question. So, if you are saying, look at the last example, isn't your car working? Isn't, you have a not there. So that becomes a negative question. So you're not only getting the answer of a yes or a no, but it is also an element. Isn't your car working? There is an element of surprise there. But the other forms are like, is this the girl who came yesterday? Did you go to the office? Are you going today? So for all of it, you know that the answer would be yes or a no. Then we move on to the alternative questions. Just like the picture on the screen, you have two possible replies, either this or that. Now, most of the times, you can see that this possible reply is mentioned in the question itself. The listener is provided with a choice. Would you do this or that? So for an example, look at the example here. Will you travel by train or by boat? So you have a choice between a train or a boat. So either you choose train or you choose boat. Which ice cream would you like? See, when you go to the shop, the shopkeepers ask you, right? Which one do you like? And showing you the choices out there. So you will have to pick up your preference. So which ice cream would you like, chocolate or vanilla? So you'll have to choose either chocolate or vanilla. So either one of them. So such questions are called alternative questions, where you are allowed with two possible replies. The next set is exclamatory questions. I'm pretty sure you're all familiar with exclamatory sentences, where we're also told in our school days that, when you end a sentence with an exclamatory mark is what is shown in red. With an exclamatory mark, that becomes an exclamatory statement. Now, what are these exclamatory questions? Now, how do you ask an exclamatory question? Though it is said that it is an exclamatory question, or it is a question, it has a function of an exclamation, where such questions ask for confirmation. You're just trying to ask the other person whether it's really true or not. You want to confirm it. This is also something similar to a question tag, which we would be looking in detail. So as I've already mentioned, though it sounds as a question, it has a function of an exclamation. Wasn't it a wonderful experience? Has she not grown? So you're just wanting to know, or you just want to get a confirmation based on the question that you have asked. So there is an exclamation to it, but you don't end it with an exclamatory mark because it is a question that you are raising. The next one is a tag question. Now, question tag is something which we are very familiar with. This is something that we have repeatedly done in school. So the tag questions and the WH questions would be looked into detail in another class. But this is a very brief idea on tag question. So we do know that a tag question is a question which follows a statement. So you have an initial statement and then a comma, and then you ask the question tag. And this short question at the end of the sentence is with an auxiliary verb and a pronoun. So auxiliary verbs like does, where, did, any of that sort. And then with the pronoun, you, they, he, she, using any of those. And this is also a question which is asked for confirmation. You really want to confirm whether it is or not, whether it's the same person or not, or whatever you're trying to say it in the statement, you want to prove or you want to confirm whether it's right or not. And the biggest rule that we have learned for a question tag is that if it is a positive statement, the question tag would be a negative one. And when it is a negative statement, the question tag would be a positive one. We know what is a negative and a positive statement is. Look at the first example. He likes him. It is a positive statement. There is no not here. But the question tag has to be a negative one because the statement is a positive one. Doesn't he? Look at the second one. You were joking, weren't you? The last one, the statement is a negative one. They didn't know. So the question tag is, did they? Look at the questions. Doesn't he, weren't you, did they? An auxiliary verb plus a pronoun. So it's a very short question which is used at the end of a sentence for confirmation. The next one are the declarative questions. We use this very commonly, only in informal situations though. And a declarative question is asked with a rising intonation. Now, what is an intonation? It's to do with the pitch that we use. We either have a high pitch or we have a low pitch. So declarative questions, the answers to it would be an yes or a no. And as I've already mentioned, this is commonly used only in informal situations. Now, why do we have such declarative questions? Basically, to know whether it's a yes or a no. You coming with us? See, it looks like a statement, right? But yet, you have given a high pitch to your tone when you ask, and therefore it becomes a question. You are coming with us. With a full stop would be just a statement saying that you are coming with us. But when you change your tone, when you change your pitch to, you're coming with us? See, you've raised your pitch. You have used the rising intonation. You're coming with us? So that becomes a question where the reply would be yes or a no. Look at the one in the picture. Wow, you ate that whole thing? So again, that's a yes or a no, where you raise your pitch by using the rising intonation. This is very commonly used, by all of us. But remember, this declarative question is used only in or mostly in informal situations. And the next one is an indirect question, as opposed to the declarative question, where we said that declarative questions are used in an informal situation. Indirect questions are used in formal situations. It's a modified question or very professional. You're being extra polite, where you use it in a formal situation, to a formal body. And here, something very peculiar about this is, there is a question which is embedded in a statement, or a question embedded in a question itself. And the last bit would be the question part, and that question part is reduced to a noun phrase. Now look at the examples here. I asked him what his name was. So what is a noun phrase here? What his name was. So you have a question with a what and then with a noun phrase. Look at the next one. Could you tell where the office is? So what is a noun phrase here? Where the office is. You're being very polite and you use this in a very formal situation to a formal body. Could you tell where the office is? Could you tell me where the office is? I asked him what his name was. Could you direct me to the office? Anything of that sort where you're being extra polite. Those are indirect questions. Then the last one is a rhetorical question. Now, rhetorical question is commonly used in literature, especially in plays. But let me make it a little more simple to you. This is a forceful statement. You really don't want an answer for it, but you're just making a point. You're just stating something. You just want to say that this is it. You're not expecting any kind of an answer. Can't you do anything right? Like the parents or the teachers would ask you, can't you do anything right? Not that he or she is expecting a question, but rather telling you that you haven't been doing anything right. Is this some kind of a joke? So look at the comic strip out here. Look at Garfield. He looks so bored, right? What a boring life I have is a question. What? A WH question. But at the same time, it is rhetorical because there is no answer to it. He's just saying to himself, he's just making a point that he has such a boring life. And then look at the next one. How could anyone have a more boring life? And then he is in boredom again. He just doesn't have anything to say, but in boredom. There's no answer to it. So this is a rhetorical question. So these are the different types of questions that we can use in order to frame a question in the English language. As I've already mentioned, you're all familiar with all these types of questions because we use this very commonly in our day-to-day lives. There is not a single day that we pass on without asking a question, right? Even when we get up in the morning, even when our parents tell you to do something, you would reciprocate with a question. Even when you go to a shop, you want that and you ask the shopkeeper. You're asking to get information. So let me go back again, and in a nutshell, let me tell you what this is. We are rewinding the whole thing. There are different types of questions, and the first one is WH questions. WH is the words with what, when, who, which, why, and how. And these are questions asked to identify the subject or object or time. And when you are identifying the subject part, there is no change in the word order. It's the usual word order, subject plus verb plus object. But in other cases, there is a change in the word order. The next one is a yes or a no question, where the expected answer is either yes or a no and nothing more. You tick this or that. And this is a common question that you can see in questionnaires as well. I'm sure most of us have filled a questionnaire. And, we also have a negative question that would bring about an element of surprise, though it is a yes or no question. And you can see that such questions begin with auxiliary verb or the be forms of it. The next one is the alternative question, where you were given a choice. The person who has to answer is given a choice. And that choice would mostly be mentioned in the question itself. Like, which ice cream would you like, chocolate or vanilla? And then you have the exclamatory question. It is a question, but it functions as same as that of an exclamatory sentence. But you don't use an exclamatory mark, you use a question. And these questions are asked for confirmation. Then we have the tag questions. These questions are also asked for confirmation, but the difference of these types of questions are, you have a statement at the beginning and then it is followed by a question. And this short question, which is seen at the end of a sentence, contains an auxiliary verb and a pronoun. They didn't know. Did they? So a negative statement with a positive question tag and a positive statement with a negative question tag. Then we have the declarative questions, where you ask these questions with a rising tone. It might look like a statement, but you have to raise the pitch or the intonation of it in order to look, or in order to make that into a question. And it's very commonly used in informal situations. You coming with us? And the indirect questions, as we've already mentioned, that it is used in a formal situation, a very polite way of asking question. And the question part is reduced to a noun phrase. And the last one is the rhetorical question, where you are not expected to give an answer. You're just making a point. You're stating things out. A very forceful statement, in fact. So that is a rhetorical question. I hope you have understood the different types of questions that we use in the English language in order to frame questions. Thank you for being patient enough and listening to this whole class. If you do have any doubts, please contact me through your teachers. Thank you once again.